Hello and welcome back to another edition of Open Air Atheist. I'm James Theodore Stillwell III, and today's episode is entitled Theos of the Gaps. And pardon this episode script. It wasn't formed over a process of billions of years, but I pulled it out of my ass at the last minute. So here we go. When it comes to the theistic argument, big bangs have bangers. The theist really can't even speak about a first cause, because before the Big Bang, there was no time and space for sequential causation to play out. So we don't know what happened, but I see no need to fill in the question mark with a theos or God or even purple pixies for that matter. Theists say we can't have an infinite regress, but then theists have a God who for an eternity prior to making the universe says, I'm going to make the universe. So Christians tell me, did your God say, I'm going to have an infinite series of events between my first thought of making the universe and then make the universe? This is what can be known at this time. There could not have been a sequential cause and effect, as we know cause and effect, because time and space, which is the platform for cause and effect sequence, did not exist before the Big Bang. The theist says you can't have something from nothing, but that's exactly what the theist claims when he says his God did it ex nihilo, or out of nothing. 2. Theists also talk about a tornado making a 747, but that's not what atheists are saying about evolution on natural selection. We're not saying that out of nowhere there was a spontaneous appearing of a 747 or a human being. But we are talking about millions and millions of years of trial and error. We're talking about a very gradual process building on itself, or natural selection, which is not the same thing as a spontaneous appearance of a fully formed, complex individual. And I've noticed that those theists who don't like natural selection have no problem with divine selection, or the Calvinistic doctrines of predestination and election. Theists also like to assert life after death. But what about the severe improbability of consciousness after death, of the physical brain? And where is the mechanism by which consciousness, self-awareness, which is so obviously dependent on the physical brain, how can it survive the death of the physical brain? 3. Now, theists also assert that atheists can't explain a reason on atheism. But yes, we can, because our daily lives of day-to-day experience of a physical universe shows us that we have reason, and we can empirically determine things like the fact that we live in a physical universe. Theists need to demonstrate how our capacity to think within our physical brains must have a platform of a underlying supernatural cause. Theists love to talk about absolute moral values and how we used to approve of slavery, but it's the God of the Bible who approved of slavery, and the Apostle Paul told the slaves to obey their masters, and in the Old Testament you can be sold into slavery. So obviously slavery was approved of in the Bible. Then they ask, how will Hitler be punished without their God? But you see, if one takes the God of the Bible as many theists interpret him, it's a trick question. Many were shoved into ovens by Hitler and his crew according to them, those who were shoved into the furnaces are in hell because they didn't accept Jesus. Or if you take the Calvinistic approach, it's because they weren't one of the elect. However, if any of the Nazis accepted Jesus or were elect before dying, then they are in heaven. So then the God of the Bible is in charge of something worse than the massacre of 6 million people. Not to mention all the unelect babies in hell. So according to the God of Christian Calvinistic or Calvinism, it is okay to torture babies for your own glory or personal pleasure and for all eternity, as well, as long as you are God. Theists talk about human rights, but where in the Bible does it talk about equality? Where does it talk about democracy? Where does it talk about the rights of the individual? It only seems to talk about theocratic government. What about the equality of women? Throughout the Bible, you can have women in absolute submission to men, and even seen as property. In Genesis 3:16, and then in the New Testament, it states that women should be subordinate to the husband and should not even speak in the church because she was deceived, the one deceived, not Adam, by the serpent. Where is the human rights in that? Moral values aren't dependent on God, just like the laws of logic doesn't depend on God. Whether God exists or not, 2 and 2 always equal 4. Rape is wrong regardless of his existence or non-existence. But in the Bible, God commissions rape and tells Moses' army to kill the non-virgins and keep the virgins for yourself. Doesn't that sound like rape? Ask the God of the Bible why he killed innocent children in the flood in Genesis. Ask your God, Mr. Theist or Miss Theist, how he justifies killing every innocent child of the Amalekites in 1 Samuel.